Finding a pilot job can be a difficult task, especially if you have low experience. So when you get that phone call for an interview, you certainly don't want to blow it. In this video, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know to successfully pass a pilot interview and give you some sample questions and answers recruiters could ask. Welcome back, aviators! Happy to see all of your smiling faces ready to consume some aviation content. If you're new to my channel, my name is Yaro and I take the mystery out of the aviation industry, so consider subscribing for more videos just like this. In this video, I'm going to explain the different types of interviews, give you some pro tips during the interview process, share with you the formula that has helped me pass every single one of my pilot interviews, and give you some examples of questions and answers that recruiters could ask. Let's get into it. An interview in Canada consists of all or a combination of a psychological or cognitive test, a technical exam, and a panel interview. This will change slightly from company to company, as some companies have the technical portion on a tablet, others do it as part of the panel interview. Some companies are even incorporating a pre-interview video submission, where you record several answers on a video and submit it online before you get invited for an in-person interview. I'm not going to focus on the technical portion of the interview in this video because that's pure studying. Instead, I'm going to focus on the panel interview to help you make the best first impression possible. So what should you do prior to the interview to give you the highest chance of success? Study and preparation. Just like flying takes a lot of practice and studying, so does an interview. The first task is to learn absolutely everything you possibly can about the company you are interviewing with. Create a Word document and copy-paste everything that's important in there from the company's website so you can keep things organized and refer to back later when you need to study or memorize facts about the company. You should know their mission statement and history, when did this company start and what has made them successful up until now. Know their fleet types and size, some of the destinations, their bases, key people like the CEO, Director of Flight Operations, and Chief Pilot. Their financial performance, both this year and the last 5 or 10 years. Recent company news, both good and bad. And industry threats like oil prices, competition, and market saturation. You are the one that applied to this company and want to spend several years there, or maybe your whole career, so invest the time in learning everything you can about them. This will not only help you in the interview, but will impress the interview panel about your commitment level. If they see how much prep work you put into the interview, that will show them your character and work ethic, and the company can be confident you will put in the same amount of work into your training and when flying the line. Next, make sure you dress well. I'm not talking about a suit and tie, but business casual is a great place to start. Your appearance is the first impression the interview panel will get, and it will set the tone for them of who you are and how much effort you put into your appearance. Remember, when you are wearing the airline's uniform, you are representing the company, and if you show up looking like a slob for your interview, you might look the same wearing their uniform. Then make sure to arrive early. There's nothing more awkward than you bursting through the front door all sweaty and flustered. Not a professional look for any pilot. You want to walk in there cool as a cucumber with style and confidence. Because remember, you never know who's watching. Some companies even ask the receptionist their opinion of you. Were you nice and courteous, or rude and obnoxious and only started smiling for the interview panel? Lastly, when you do meet the interview panel, make sure to present yourself with confidence, smile, have a firm handshake, and talk with a loud voice. Even if you're super shy and nervous, keep that hidden on the inside and present yourself with confidence. Now, let's talk about the panel interview. The panel will consist of 2 or 3 people, a flight ops representative, either a management pilot or line captain, and an HR representative. The questions will be, tell us about a time when format, and to help you answer them successfully, use the SPARE format. This format is what I personally use in every single one of my pilot interviews during my pilot career, and it works flawlessly. It stands for situation. Briefly explain the situation where the problem occurred. Problem, state the problem faced. Action, state what you did to resolve the problem. Result: what happened? Good or bad, successful or unsuccessful? Experience: what you took away or learned from this event. First, pick a scenario from your personal experience that best fits the question. If you have little flying experience or this is your first pilot job, then pick something from relevant past experiences or jobs you've had. As part of your studying and interview preparation, you should come up with a bank of different situations you can draw from. This way they can be fit or molded to different questions and you will always have an answer for the recruiter. For example, tell us a time when you made a mistake and what did you learn from it? Early on in my flying career, I entered Class C controlled airspace without a clearance by accident.
What?
Now that I presented the interview panel with my situation, what problem or consequences did my actions have? By entering controlled airspace without a clearance, I could have been causing a conflict with other traffic or impeding on arrivals or departures, and air traffic control would have had to divert aircraft around me because they weren't in communication with me. Under the action, tell them exactly what you did to resolve the problem. One thing in aviation that's important is to always fess up to your mistakes, because hiding them will have larger consequences than admitting to them and learning from them. What I did was I immediately dialed up the correct frequency and contacted center, told them what has happened, that I entered their airspace without a clearance, where I was, and what my intentions were. Under the results, what happened? How did we resolve this issue? After contacting center, they didn't even realize that I had entered their airspace, and they were courteous and let me know that I was radar identified and that I could proceed as planned. And luckily I didn't cause any conflicts in their airspace. Finally, conclude with an outcome or resolution of the situation. Explain what you learned from it and how it will help you in the future. As pilots, we're always learning from our past experiences and mistakes, and recruiters will want to know how you are improving yourself. What I learned from the situation was to be stricter at reading the maps and not allow myself to get complacent. As you build hours and experience, you also build your confidence, and sometimes that can lead to a cocky attitude, and that is where you have to check yourself, become stricter with your decision making, and be a more professional pilot. Now I want to give you an example of 3 interview question and answers following the SPARE model. Tell us about an emergency you've been in. When I was a flight instructor, I was out in the practice area with a student when all of a sudden the engine made a loud bang and we lost power. What happened was the compression spring on one of the valves broke and the valve was stuck, so when the piston came up, the valve punctured a hole right through the piston. Immediately what I did was take control from the student, put on the carb heat and start turning back towards the airport. Luckily we were only 15 minutes away from the airport and we were able to limp the airplane back to a safe landing without the engine quitting and taxi it off the runway. What I learned from this event is how important emergency training is and how to stay cool and collected under pressure, especially if you have a student with you. It reinforced the fact of why emergency training is so important, why we do forced landings, stalls, steep turns, all of these maneuvers, because if something happens in real life, we have to act without thinking. I also learned things about myself and how I actually react during a real emergency situation, how cool and collected I stayed, and how I was able to land the airplane safely. Have you ever had a personality conflict with someone you worked with? Yes, I flew with a captain who was loud and obnoxious and would not listen to anything his first officer said. The problem is this is a complete breakdown in CRM where the captain just barks orders and doesn't listen to his first officers, and this could lead to a serious incident or accident. First officers have to have the ability and confidence to bring any kind of information to the captain to have him make an informed decision if things are going sideways. And there have been a lot of crashes that have been caused by this kind of attitude. What I did was, instead of getting mad and upset, I addressed the situation head on and spoke with the captain directly. I explained to him that even though I was a first officer, we had nearly the same amount of hours. I told him that he couldn't talk to me this way and that my input was no less relevant than his. At the end of the conversation, we came to a conclusion and a compromise, and he understood where I was coming from, and that gave me a little bit more respect in his eyes. What I learned from this event is to be able to speak with confidence, argue only with facts, not emotions, and not let yourself get walked all over. CRM is critical in the flight deck, and you cannot have such a communication breakdown when you're dealing with emergencies, bad weather, or just daily operations. At the end of the day, our job is to get everybody from point A to point B safely, and nobody wins when there's a conflict in the flight deck. What is your greatest weakness? Now, before you answer this question, you have to make sure that you find a weakness in yourself that can be turned into a strength. You don't want the weakness to be so terrible that the airline doesn't want to hire you, and you don't want to use something silly like you pick your nose when no one's watching. So this is what I use. My greatest weakness is that I am too hard on myself. Since I'm a quick learner and I typically get things from the first attempt, if I don't succeed right away, I get angry and beat myself up and dwell on the past. What I have learned to do is to recognize when this is happening and prevent myself from spiraling down into negativity. As a result, I have learned not to dwell on the past, but instead can analyze my mistakes in a non-emotional way and learn from them so I can move forward. What I learned is that there is always a silver lining even if we don't see it right away. By staying cool and level-headed and analyzing where your mistakes were, you can improve much faster than dwelling on the past and beating yourself up about it. This has helped me a lot in the airlines when we go for simulator testing every 6 months. Instead of beating myself up about the previous mistakes I have made in the last simulator session, I go into the next simulator session better prepared by analyzing my previous mistakes and being okay making new mistakes that I will learn from. Aviation safety is based on a Swiss cheese model that mistakes will happen, but it's our job to trap them. In conclusion, your success during an interview will be directly correlated with how much work you put in. Becoming good at interviews takes a lot of practice and hard work, and you can find dozens of pilot interview questions online to practice with. A big tip is to practice your interview questions out loud. I used to talk to myself for hours practicing for an interview because formulating sentences out loud is much different than practicing in your head. This way you also get better at coming up with different scenarios and past experiences to draw from if a recruiter asks you a question you were not prepared for. So I hope this video helped you understand the pilot interview process and gave you the tools to be successful. So smash the like button if you enjoyed this video, check out the best tasting coffee on the go, and I'll see you in the next video.